Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. So today we're going to talk about listening strengthens relationships. So we've made it up to the fourth step at home. And you know, from the previous episodes, if you've been listening to the whole series, when we talk about the how to apply a step at home, we got the checklist for you. So I'll be diving into that checklist. We're on actually chapter 21 in the book. And chapter 21 is the fourth step at home. And I title this episode, Listening Strengthens Relationships, because that's what we're going to focus on, listening. Remember last time I was talking about developing those people at home, those people on your team. And to develop someone, remember we talked about they have to trust you. And guess what? If you won't listen to people, they're not going to trust you. So Rhea in the book, she focused on one of the key traits. She focused this entire chapter on the key trait of listening. A lot of times you think about, to develop someone, I got to talk to them. I got to teach them something. That may be the ultimate goal, but until they're willing to listen, you ain't going to be teaching them anything because they're not listening. So how do you get people to listen? You go first. That means you listen first. So let's talk about that a little bit. But Rhea says having a desire to empower others so they won't have to depend on you is a sign of growth and maturity. When you're willing to celebrate the success of others without fearing they will outgrow you or outshine you, you demonstrate true strength of character. And that's what she's talking about is you got to be secure. You got to be secure as a person to grow and develop other people. Crazy as it sounds, you may have to be secure as a person just to listen to someone. Insecure people want to talk all the time. Secure people want to listen and learn. Insecure people are afraid to listen and learn because they want to appear they know everything, so they got to be talking. Rhea goes on to say, you shouldn't give advice or wisdom if it isn't wanted. Think about that. In life, if somebody's always giving you some advice or sharing some wisdom with you and you don't want it, how effective is any of that advice or wisdom going to be? It's going to be ineffective. And if these people just continuously want to give you advice and wisdom you don't want, it won't be long before those people ain't around you because you ain't going to choose to be around those people. And again, it could be at home. It could be your children. You can say, well, my children have to be around me. Not forever, they don't. They're going to grow up at some point. At some point, they're going to realize they got options. And one of those options is not to have you be a part of their life if you're a parent of some younger children or teenage children, people still living in your home. So Rhea says, what do you do if you try to give advice and wisdom, but it isn't wanted? She says you continue to develop yourself. You learn to influence others through your listening skills and your ability to ask the right questions. Think about that. You don't have to be telling people stuff. You don't have to be selling them stuff, meaning your ideas, your thoughts. Just listen. Listening is a powerful, influential tool. That's what this chapter is about. She says you learn to influence others through your listening skills and your ability to ask the right questions. See, when you ask the right questions, when you listen right, then you can ask the right question. When you ask the right questions, you're going to provoke thought with the intention of raising awareness. So when you ask the right question in the right way at the right time for the right reason, you get the right results. You get the people you're trying to influence to start thinking, which is what you want them to do anyway. You know, I share a lot of times that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you can't. But you can put some water on his tongue, make him thirsty. There's another related saying says you can lead a human to knowledge, but you can't make them think. You can't make someone think, but you can influence them to think. One of the simplest ways to do it is ask a question. Pretty hard to hear a question and you don't think about something because of that question. So when you know how to ask the right questions and how to listen to the answers, you'll master the ability to increase your influence during conversations. So Ria talks about learning to listen is particularly important in your personal relationships, especially at home. Remember, this chapter is about the fourth step at home and with a focus on listening. And the reason is those relationships at home tug on your heart. They maximize your emotions. You got a lot more emotions at home because you care a lot more about those relationships most often. And listening at home sometimes is much, much harder than listening at work. Because at home, you're so much more emotional. You're tied so much more to the outcome because you're literally living with the people you're trying to influence to do a certain thing or to live a certain way or to behave a certain way. Maria says it's ironic that we often talk about developing our communication skills, such as writing or speaking, but rarely, if ever, do we focus on the importance of developing our listening skills. Think about that. Last episode, I talked about, developing others, a commitment to developing others. And I talked about anybody at any level can start a podcast, can write a book, can write a blog, can get on social media and write a post, share some thoughts. But then we shifted gears completely in this chapter. And now we're talking about you can develop others. If you don't want to do any of that other stuff that I just talked about, do this one. Listen and ask great questions. Focus on intentionally becoming an intentional and methodical listener. And then ask thought-provoking questions with the intent of raising awareness. Can you do that? Can you do that at home? Can you do that at work? So Ria says you'll know you're on the right track when you can say these things I'm about to share with you. This is her checklist from the book. So these are items related to listening well at home. Really, it applies anywhere, but the focus here is at home. So the first item, and then there's Ria's note at the end. The first item is I listen without thinking about something else. Man, how hard is that one? How hard is it to listen and really listen and not get your own thoughts going about your own life and your own wants and needs? Ria's note related to that is I focus on what the other person is saying instead of something I want to say or something I'd rather be doing. The next item, I practice empathic listening. Her note, I listen to others and empathize with their perspective, even when I disagree. What she's talking about with empathic listening is listening with the intent to understand. Most people listen with the intent to reply. Empathic listening is listening with the intent to understand. Doesn't mean you agree or disagree. That's not even the goal. The goal is to make sure you understand what the other person is saying, thinking, and feeling until that they feel that you understand. Not until you think you understand, but until they feel that you understand. That's the goal. Once they feel you understand, they may be willing to accept your influence. The next item on the list, I listen without interrupting. Her note, I give the other person space to complete their sentence. I mean, this is a hard one for me. I'm always listening and I'm always wanting to say something. Actually, this whole chapter is hard for me. Dr. Covey, the author of the 7 Habits, his book, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit 5, the whole chapter is about what we're talking about right here. Empathic listening. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, as he writes it, then to be understood. It's the hardest habit of the 5 for me personally. Dr. Covey says, as he taught that the 7 habits all over the world, that it's the hardest for everybody everywhere. Is the most common habit that is the hardest is habit 5, listening. Listening with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply. That's why we interrupt. And Rhea's bullet there was, I listen without interrupting. We interrupt because we got something to say. We want to say it. So that means we're listening with the intent to reply, not to understand. So the moment we interrupt, we're replying. That means we got it wrong. We can do it all day, but we're not going to increase our influence. The 4th item on Rhea's list, I listen until the other person stops talking. Her note, I make sure others have finished sharing what's on their mind before I begin speaking. That goes hand in hand with the last one. I listen without interrupting. So not only is she saying don't interrupt, some people will interrupt someone 5 or 6 times while they're trying to make their point. Rhea says don't do any of those 5 or 6. You wait till they're done. Then it's your turn. But really, even when it becomes your turn, it's not just your turn just to dump the truck on them, whatever's on your chest, whatever's on your mind. What you want to do is you want to rephrase, reflect feeling, content of what they shared. You don't want to say the exact same thing, but you want to give them back what they gave you so that they'll know you understand. Say what they said in a different way. Somebody wants to know what you think, guess what they'll do? They'll ask you a question. So while you're trying to understand, you just want to reflect content, reflect feeling. You can reword what they're saying in a different way. Don't do it like a robot. Do it creatively. But the number one thing is don't interrupt and make sure that they get off of their chest whatever they're trying to dump on you. The next bullet, I give my full attention when listening. Rhea's note, I don't look at my phone, my computer, or the TV while listening. What she's talking about there, don't be distracted. That doesn't build trust. If someone's trying to talk to you and you're trying to do other things and you're trying to convince and tell them you can do 2 or 3 things at once, you can't. You do one thing at once. You may be doing multiple things, but not at the same time. You're doing different things at different times, maybe back to back to back, and it looks like you're doing a lot of multitasking, but you're really single tasking over and over and over. So when someone's talking to you, if you're trying to actively listen with the intent to understand, give them your full attention. If you can't do that at the moment, maybe you tell them, we need to have this discussion later when I can give you my full attention. Person will respect that. The next bullet on her list, I show my attention with my body language. Rhea's note at the end, I stop what I'm doing, turn towards others, and focus on listening. And I can tell you that's exactly what she does if I walk in her office and she's busy. She's going to stop what she's doing. She's going to turn her chair, face me, and she's going to pay attention. And I try to do the same thing with her. I may tell her, hold on a second if she walks in and I'm in the middle of something I don't want to lose thought of, if I'm writing or something like that. Whatever it is, if I'm doing something on my computer, I say, hang on one second, let me finish this. As soon as I finish that, I turn around, give her my full attention. I don't let her talk to my back. If you're serious about talking to someone, you don't want to talk to the back of the head when you walk in. You want to talk to them. So what she's saying is use your body language to make sure they understand you're focused on them. You're giving them your full attention. One of the things I touched on a second ago, another bullet on her list right here. I don't multitask when engaged in important conversations. Her note, I don't try to do other things while listening. Kind of covered that one a second ago. Next bullet, I pay close attention to what isn't being said. And Ria's note is, I watch body language to learn more about what others are feeling. Remember I said earlier, when you're listening to with the intent of understanding, you want to reflect content, meaning literally what people are saying. And then also I said reflect feeling, meaning what are you seeing someone? Like someone may not say they're angry, but you can tell they're angry. So when you're reflecting feeling and content, you may say, you know, I sensed this situation got you pretty upset. You didn't tell them they were upset. You said, I sense this situation has got you pretty upset. And that's being a sounding board, a mirror, reflecting their feeling. And then they'll say, yeah, blah, 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 whatever they say. But the reason they're continuing on to dump the truck on you is because they felt understood in that moment. The next bullet, I reflect feelings when others are upset. Ria's note, I rephrase what I think they are saying and feeling to make sure they feel that I truly understand. And that's a couple of things I've already kind of covered that one with you. The next bullet, I hold the space while others are thinking. Ria's note, I don't ask a question and then start talking if others don't reply immediately. And this is a powerful one she's talking about right here. And I have to work on this one all the time, but when I get it right, it's powerful. Hold the space while others are thinking. That means while they're talking to you and they're thinking, just be quiet and listen. It might be a minute. It might be 30 seconds. It might be 10 seconds. But when they're thinking, don't take that space and start talking about something else. Especially if you've asked them a question. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of leaders in meetings with folks, and you know, something's going on and they're talking to the person. They ask them a question and the person's thinking about the answer. And instead of the leader being a high impact leader and just being quiet and letting the person think to get an answer, they ask them another question or 2 or 3 more questions. They done ask like 5 questions and the person ain't answered the first question. It happens at home with parents as well. This chapter here is focusing, you know, the 4th step at home. It means when you're talking to your spouse or your children or whoever lives in your house, somebody's trying to explain something and you can tell they're thinking. Hold the space, which means be quiet during the silence. If you ask them a question, be quiet and let them answer. They may start answering and then they're thinking some more about the rest of their answer. Don't jump in, steal that space and deflect their thought. Just be quiet and listen. The next bullet, I value my relationship with the other person more than I value winning the argument. And Ria's note, it's not about being right. Wow, how much does that happen at home? Especially between the adults. Both the adults want to be right and they just won't quit. They just can't stand it. They both got to be right. So the moment one thinks they're right, well, the other one's just got to take it up another notch, prove they're right. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. High impact leaders ain't about being right. It's about doing what is right. And most often what's right is let somebody else be right. Doesn't matter. Your goal is to maximize and increase your influence. And if you're frustrated, it's probably because you don't have any influence in the moment. So doing all the wrong things when you're already out of influence is not going to create trust and build influence. It's just going to create distrust and diminish your influence. So the last bullet here in this chapter on Ria's list, I don't give unsolicited advice. That's a hard one too. But again, if people want your advice, guess what they'll do? Same thing you'll do. You'll ask someone for it. So if you'll build up plenty of trust, then they're more likely to ask you for your advice. But if you create distrust, even if they need advice, they may not be likely to ask you. So Rhea's note on that: I don't give unsolicited advice. Her note: I wait until I'm asked to give advice before telling others what I would do if I were them, or what I think they should do in a particular situation. Again, people are people. If we're talking to somebody we trust and we want their advice, we will ask for it. So will other people. They'll do the same thing to us. If they trust us, they like us, they want our advice, they'll ask us. What happens with parents a lot is the same thing happened to me with my son when I lost influence with him from 15 to 19. I never built the trust. As he became a teenager, I kept doing things to create distrust. Eventually, my emotional trust account was overdrawn. I was out of trust. I didn't have any influence. He didn't want my advice. And he chose to go live with his mother and not have anything to do with me until I figured out all this stuff that I'm teaching you now. So Rhea's got a quote in her book by someone named Rumi. I assume that's what it is, R-U-M-I. And the quote says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. That's the challenge. If you don't have enough influence at home or at work, anywhere else, you got to focus on changing yourself. You got to be proactive. You got to look in the mirror. But most people, when they run out of influence, they get reactive and start looking out the window, focusing on what's wrong with everyone else, why they won't listen to me. I'm telling you, Rhea's telling you, if you're frustrated, you're out of influence, look in that mirror, figure out what it is you need to work on. If you don't know, you start reading books like this Ladder of Influence. Read my book, the 10 Foundational Elements of Intentional Transformation, or my book, Defining Influence. Books like that, relative to personal growth, things that's going to provoke thought in you and raise your awareness. Or you can just have a mouthful of pride and ego and not be able to swallow the truth, which is you need personal development. If you got frustration in your life and you don't know what to do about it, I'm telling you what to do about it. Develop yourself. If you got too much of pride and ego and think it's everybody else and it ain't you, that very thought is the problem. Whatever's wrong in my life, I'm the problem. I'm the root cause of it. Somehow, I'm the problem. I got to work on me till I can address it. Doesn't matter if it's at home or at work or if it's in traffic. Doesn't matter where it's at. I'm the solution to every problem I ever had and ever will have. I'm the solution. That's a hard pill for some folks to swallow, especially if they got a mouthful of pride and ego, like I often say. All right, I hope you found value in today's episode. Next time, we'll talk about the 4th step at work. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.